Episode 10 of The Testaments begins in the aftermath of Becka being taken away. Agnes is obviously torn up, and even more so when she reads the autopsy report. Now, Becka didn't just stab her father once, she went to town on him with that knife, stabbing the guy multiple times all over his body, with cuts ranging from 1 to 4 inches deep. At school, all the kids are gathered in the dining room, where Vidala announces that Becka will no longer attend school after her father's passing. Only Agnes knows the truth here, and she rushes outside, angry and pounding Garth's chest. When Aunt Estee shows to try and break it up, Garth diffuses the situation and hugs Agnes to comfort her. Now, striking a man like this is against Gilead tradition, of course, even if her and Garth are close. Estee tells Agnes to snap out of it, but there's no further punishment for her. Aunt Lydia heads off to visit Becka while she's incarcerated next. She does her best to try and help the girl, but her pleas fall on deaf ears with the prison matron. Now, Commander Judd is here too, and he's pissed over what's transpired. Despite Grove being on the chopping block to be sacrificed and killed, seeing a woman slay him, his own daughter no less, is a tough pill for Judd to swallow. He wants an example to be made of Becka, sacrificed in the name of Fallout. Judd decides the most merciful way of handling this is to send Becka off to the Red Centre for her to become a handmaid. Back at school, Shu wants to know the truth, and with Holder and Daisy in the bathroom alone, she opens up and tells them the truth. The four decide they need to do something to try and help their friend. Agnes is brave and confronts Vidala next, where she points out their teachings led to actions like this, and Agnes's words cut deep with Vidala, especially when Agnes bitterly retorts that she prayed for someone to protect Becka, but nobody did. Back home, Commander Weston heads over to see Agnes. She wants his help to free Becka, but he shrugs off her concerns. Getting nowhere, Agnes opens up about how she's one of the girls that Grove abused. Hearing this, Weston stands up and promises to do what he can for Becka. Off the back of this, Becka is freed temporarily. She's allowed to go home, but she'll be under 24-hour surveillance. She's also going to be questioned in a few days before remanded to the state. Meanwhile, Mayday send a message out to Daisy, telling her to meet at 10 PM inside a lorry. She manages to evade the aunts and is stuffed inside a barrel before being driven out of Gilead. She meets with June down by the docks, who decides Daisy's time is done. She hasn't been listening to her handler and has become a liability to them. When Becka mentions Agnes, June wavers a little as she hears what her daughter is actually like. Daisy refuses to walk away from this and wants to go back to free the girls from Gilead. June eventually concedes and allows it. Daisy is smuggled back in, where her and Garth concoct a story about her smoking on the grounds. She also brings up Becka too and confronts Lydia about it, asking what she's doing to try and save Becka. It's a bold move, and one that sees Lydia actually take some action. It's also helped by a similar chat with Vidala in her office too. Here they talk about Becka, with Vidala eventually confronting Lydia about the stadium incident. Lydia believes the adjustment has come easy to her, but for Vidala she's clearly been through a lot. We don't see the extent of that though, but Vidala suggests they work together rather than against one another. Lydia shows to see Becka with Vidala and they make a bold choice. The only solution to this, one that would see Becka go free, is to switch the story. Instead of Becka being the one with the knife, her mother would take her place as the murderer. At the same time, Commander Weston calls off the engagement with Agnes over her confession. It's too early to tell if this is good or bad news right now. Paula is surely torn up over this though, distraught over her daughter no longer having such a prospective marriage lined up. When Agnes finds her scrubbing furiously in the bathroom, Paula begins bitterly retorting about how grateful Agnes should be. Paula mentions how she doesn't deserve this, while also angrily telling Agnes she could have been mutilated given her past ties. Agnes has heard enough and steps out in the night. She arrives at the men's quarter and speaks to Garth. She demands that he follow through with his engagement and opens up about how she really feels about him. In a roundabout way anyway. Garth did already know this from Daisy of course, but Agnes's bravery and courage does the trick to convince him to follow through. Now Becka is still a mess though, and distraught over her mother's sacrifice. Not only has she lost her father, but also her mother now too. With no parental figure to fall back on, Agnes comforts Becka and the pair kiss. It's more a reassuring kiss for her than something Agnes actually wants, and a lot can be read from these micro expressions. The outcome sees Becka and Garth married, while Becca's mother is executed in front of all the commanders. Back home, Garth rests Becka on the bed and locks the door. However, we don't see whether they do anything or tie the knot. Daisy and Agnes talk in the aftermath of this, where the former opens up about June and her ties to Agnes. Now that she knows the truth, she speaks to Lydia about the current hurdles they need to overcome with her engagement. They've never had a green come back after a broken engagement like this, so it's very much uncharted waters for Gilead. Agnes also brings up her mother, June, and how she's been listed as a criminal. Interestingly, Lydia retorts back that she knew June well and that her mother never really gave up, and neither will they. As for Daisy, she writes a note to June telling her she's going to continue the fight because apparently there's nothing more powerful than a teenage girl. And that is how season 1 of The Testaments comes to an end. So with the recent news that The Testaments has been renewed for a second season, the series closes out with a decent finale where we see some pretty good character growth for a lot of the players on this chessboard. A lot of this revolves around Becka, of course, who manages to find a slither of hope in the form of her mother sacrificing herself for her daughter. This very much sums up a lot of the thematic weight hanging over the show. The unwavering bond between mother and daughter is something that's largely been the glue holding The Handmaid's Tale together. It was also one of the most unsatisfying non-resolutions by the time that show wrapped up. Hopefully The Testaments doesn't follow suit, and thankfully we're already seeing some of that rectified in the way the show is tying the past with the present. Now that Agnes knows the truth about June, and June at least gets a bit of hope to cling to given Hannah is still alive, it renews her vigour for this fight going forward. However, the show does suffer a bit from plot contrivances and little bouts of Deus Ex Machina. We saw how hard it is to smuggle people in and out of Gilead in The Handmaid's Tale, and yet here we see truck drivers quite easily making it up and down the border without any issues. Although one could argue that since Mayday and some of the drama with the characters towards the end of The Handmaid's Tale, maybe those lines have changed slightly. Now when Daisy returned to school, they apparently knew she was missing but didn't think to start a wider hunt for the girl. Now that's before mentioning the number of times she's recklessly blurted out important information in echoey stairwells or waiting rooms, information she really shouldn't be revealing as a spy. It's also worth noting here that a lot of the girls who bravely stand up to the aunts in this episode don't get punishments for their actions. Now one could argue it's because of what's happened to Becka and they're allowing a grace period of grief, but we've seen the strict punishments they have here and all of them are very lucky in that respect. Garth's arc is equally fascinating though, and around the idealism of the girls with bangers like nothing is more powerful than a teenage girl, he manages to almost act as the voice of reason in the middle of this. He knows marrying Becka is unusual and him locking her in the bedroom is probably a smart move. I personally read those actions as him doing so Becka won't hurt herself, and also for them to lie and pretend they've slept together when they haven't. Garth really doesn't seem like the sort of guy to force women into uncomfortable situations like this, does he? The ending certainly leaves the door wide open for the second season though, which, based on this evidence at least, promises to tighten the screw in a major way. Thanks for watching, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.